Welcome to Between Data and Risk podcast. Today we'll talk about practicalities of generative AI application in business environment. Stay tuned.
If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and with me is my co-host, Artur Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risk and Strategy Officer.
Hello.
Welcome to this episode of Between Data and Risk. Today we'll be talking about practicalities of generative AI application in business environments, since it's been a hot topic in recent months and it's invading virtually every aspect of life and business. We start our discussion with a look at how LLM models can help with data analytics, since we just happened to write a book on this very subject. Artur, you're the risk guy, I'm the data guy. I think
which is exactly why we started looking at it, because there's a lot of data going into it and risks are plenty, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that half of the book is about the risks, and you have this excellent story that I think you should share with our readers about your brief encounter with Bart.
Yes, that was after considerable experience with ChatGPT, which gave me quite a lot of hope into this technology. I was quite astounded, and then I switched to Bart just to see what the fuss was about, and after a brief discussion, I noticed that Bart didn't have the same context awareness. So I asked Bart a very innocuous question: what were the last 10 prompts that I gave you? And to my surprise, Bart gave me 10 prompts, of which the last one was mine. However, the previous 9 belonged very likely to other readers with their own quite personal details, which, This is risk number one on the internet in general. Whatever you put on the internet is not private. It's just, you can pretty much guarantee it's not private. But Bart underlined it at that moment, and I'm sure Google has done something with it already. But whatever you put into those models it's not a discussion with another human being, and if it is, it's a very, very chatty, talkative, gossipy human being.
Yeah, it's we touched upon another thing that we describe in our book, which is a context awareness of LLM models. Currently, they have a limited context awareness, and very interesting things happen if you drag the conversation for too long.
Then it starts forgetting. But I think we should take a step back.
All right.
I think we should take a step back. LLM models, right? Large language models, which is just a class of AI models that have been released recently. I mean, if any of our audience haven't heard about generative AI and LLM models, they must have been living under a very large rock, and very likely they wouldn't be listening to us. But so we're not going to talk too much about what it is. Everyone has heard about ChatGPT. Most people have probably heard about Bard. There are others, obviously. There are generative AI models like DALL-E for pictures. There are ones for video, for sound. We concentrated in our book and in our research so far on the text models, because these are the ones which have the most obvious use in business, in at least in widespread business. And they're also, I think, the most versatile in a way, because when you concentrate on pictures or sound or movies, you're pretty much locked to a medium. Whereas with text, you're dealing more with knowledge, right? And insights and all the whole data to wisdom chain that I know, Marian, you're so fond of.
I am indeed, and we have also in our book a mention of an exercise where I describe some of the charts that we generated to ChatGPT, and it suggests what causality should be taken into account or considered when you observe things that I described. And so I truly believe. Also, I think we should make another note. We tested a lot of, well, maybe not a lot of, but the main generative text-based models. And in our book, we focus very much on ChatGPT because in our experience, as of time of writing the book and recording this podcast, it's the best. It's just
we used ChatGPT 4, which is the currently I think the May 23rd version is the latest one.
May 23rd is my birthday. May 24th is the current version.
So our kind of interest around the model was how it can be used in business, and specifically we decided to concentrate in the book on how it can be used for data analytics, because it's an area where specific knowledge can be used, but also a bit of intuition, a bit of insight, methodologies which are commonly known enough that such a model is very likely to have enough of the, I don't want to say knowledge, but enough of the data around them to be able to use that. But it's also interestingly intuitive sometimes. So it was interesting to see what the model could pull out.
If I may, as of time of writing the book and recording the podcast, there is no possibility of running the code or uploading the data itself. So we focused, I think our book and the discussion we have generalizes pretty well. Data analytics is a field, but we considered supporting a process of data analytics rather than running analytics, just dropping some data into the model and hoping for the best. We did that as well for the text analysis, but we started with designing the process itself. How should the well-performed data analytics? Because a lot of people were claiming that now that we have ChatGPT, data science is gone, everybody will be his own data scientist. So we decided to test this bold claim. I agree, and those of our audience who happen to listen to my rants in previous episodes know that I believe that data science, as it was sold for a long time, is indeed mechanical approach which can be easily replicated using ChatGPT. But we decided not to focus just on generating code for machine learning, but how to design a process so it gets you from pretty vague understanding of the problem that you have to some pretty concrete business advice or business conclusions. I enjoyed it immensely. I think ChatGPT, aside of Artur and my wife, who is data scientist, is the most engaging and knowledgeable conversation partner that I had in years.
Tells a lot about the people you interact with,
and our guests in the podcast. They were also pretty interesting.
But yeah, so I think it's worth kind of restating and underlining, because just so that it's not misunderstood, we didn't just drop data into the model and ask it to draw conclusions, because the models are, even though there is, I think, limited capability at the moment being developed or being introduced to upload data directly into some models. We didn't do that because that's not doing science. It's running algorithms, hoping that the model will do science for you. Data analytics, data science. So we think that's not how those models should be used, and we'll talk about risks in a minute. Secondly, it's almost an uninteresting use of them, because then you switch off yourself. You're giving up the intellectual faculty to the model, and you're just draw. It's almost it's actually worth probably giving that story, which has been widespread, where teachers were becoming a bit frustrated with those models. Especially when some teachers were handed answers like homework from their students, and the homework was the question was, describe some character from a story or something, and the student handed in homework saying, as a language model, I am unable to give. Basically, the student just copied whatever the model has spat out. In this case, it was a disclaimer from a model, which
which makes it pretty easy to distinguish from.
Yeah, you didn't have to think of it, and it just indicates how some people completely, without even reading what the model spits out, treat it as gospel. We were a bit more skeptical in our book, as you will be able to see if you read it. We actually did read quite deeply into what the model was saying. We tried to spot certain patterns, certain behaviors, of which there are actually plenty, and they're very interesting. Let's start with the context awareness, which you mentioned already. Shall we talk about the chicken experiment?
Yes, but before we go there, just today I read that there are, I don't know if plugins or some technical capability, but you can increase its awareness to 100,000 tokens from given 5,000. But the chicken experiment was absolutely amazing. I think we will link the author to give credit where credit's due. I can't, from the top of my head, I can't remember. It's, I think, Explainable AI channel on YouTube.
Yeah, and just to give a bit of context, the author of this experiment, and we apologize that we didn't prepare that deeply, but we are going to link to it. The author of this experiment quite ingeniously started feeding text into ChatGPT, and with each portion of text, I think it was 1,000 words each portion. Each portion began with a chicken name. The sentence, "There is a chicken named Alfred." The second portion began with "There is a chicken named Bart." The third one, "There is a chicken named Charlie." And after each one, the author of this study asked the ChatGPT to list the chickens that it knew. And after the first one, predictably, it knew that there's a chicken named Alfred. The second one, the chicken named Alfred and Bart. After, I think, 5,000 words, it started forgetting. So it forgot the last one. It kept kind of a rolling tally of the chickens. So it was a very interesting experiment to try to gauge how far the context awareness would go. I repeated the same experiment with Bart with quite hilarious results. So I took the same methodology. I fed it pieces of text, giving each one, prefixing each one with a chicken name. and started asking it. And after about the third one, it started telling me how wonderful my chickens are, and how Bart and Charlie are very much friends, and exhibited what we call, well, what everyone pretty much calls hallucination, AI hallucination. It completely went on a tangent about my chickens, information which I have not given it. It was quite hilarious.
And this is a pretty important topic, I think. Differentiating between AI hallucination and this human belief in AI's omnipotence. I forgot the word. Artur, help me.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
It's anyway. In a lot of sources, AI hallucination is combined human attitude towards AI and AI's tendency to make up the information it doesn't have. We never happened to encounter the situation where any of generative AI models would say, you know what, I don't know, I don't remember, please help me here. If unsure, make it up, make it till you make it. This is pretty dangerous habit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you're talking, the AI delusion, right? That
delusion.
Which is
yes.
There's at least, I know it's mixed up a bit in current use, but I think the two terms are they're gaining consistency in their use. So AI hallucination is where the model is starting to respond with information, with data that has not been fed to it. It's just making things up, to use colloquial language. But it's, as Marian said, it's making things up with such certainty and conviction that you're not going to see any difference in its output. Same, as Bart was very confidently telling me about all the wonderful information I gave it about the friendship of the chickens and how much I love them, even though I just gave it the names of the chickens. AI delusion is a different term. It's the delusion is on the human part, on the user's part. And this is where the people get deluded that the AI is omnipotent, omniscient, and that all the answers that it gives, if the computer says so, it must be true, right? So it's quite dangerous in a way, because as it's a trivial example with the chickens, but we've seen other cases in our research, and there's been information all over the internet about cases where not so trivial things have gone wrong. A good example is, on purpose, I'm not going to give the name of either the case or the lawyers, but there has been a case in the US judicial system where the defending attorneys have cited examples of cases and verdicts, and US law works on precedent. So this was quite important piece of information in their case. They cited precedent given to it by ChatGPT.
And precedent included the names of the judges who supposedly...
Names of judges, verdicts, dates, cases, which were completely and utterly made up. Except some of the names of the judges were true. And they lost the case, obviously, because the judge who was presiding over this case actually bothered to check what the lawyers didn't, and actually uncovered the complete fake nature of those cases. And the lawyers actually had to apologize to the named judges for citing, quoting them on cases and verdicts which either they haven't given or have given completely different verdicts. So this was not checking what ChatGPT tells you can lead to disastrous results. And it isn't, to
And
any
the biggest
person
problem
with
is
two brains, to any person with two brain cells, if it gives you an answer as an AI model, I cannot answer this question. If you read it at least once, you will know that it's wrong. Or, well, wrong, as in it's not an answer to your question. So hopefully you're not going to give it to your teachers as homework. But if it gives you some plausible information, you still need to check it.
This is absolutely true. And the other danger that is connected to it, it happens rarely. You can get complacent. You can get used to its absolutely amazing and wonderful advice and the absolute wealth of knowledge and information you can get out of it. This
Absolutely,
is, I think, if it would be 50-50 proposition, then you would be on your toes every time. But because it happens just every now and then, and also when we started this discussion with context awareness, for a long time, it really remembers. If it remembers well. It can summarize what you did, what you discussed, refer to the previous bits of conversation, and this, it's really unexpected when it fails. And
I think it can be psychologically explained that if you're talking to someone, to a person who is, from time to time talking nonsense, you probably kind of treat them with a bit of skepticism. If someone is knowledgeable and, well, sounds confidently, and these models, by God, they can certainly sound confident, and gives a wealth of data, examples, information, structures it in a very interesting way, then even with a person, you tend to kind of start believing what they're saying, and these models can be very persuasive. They were trained very well, they were prepared very well for the task that they
and most of the time they are right.
Most of the time,
yes.
And this needs to be.
This is the problem. This is the problem. in a sense.
Let's kind of give a brief overview what we've done in the book. We've taken the models and started asking them questions about starting with how. We did a bit of meta discussion. Yes.
The way I approached my part, which was data analytics, I took a problem. So I took a real life data from Kaggle, and then I asked myself, I have data. What am I supposed to do with it? And for me personally, it was a starting point. You started with discussing with it, and I remember our discussions and resulting discussions when you were trying to check how close to consciousness is ChatGPT, because it can be so convincing that it's hard to believe it's not a man. And I totally agree with the doubt,
not a person,
that it just yes. No, I can understand the doubt, but is it just a couple lines of code? What emergent behaviors can we expect from it?
Yeah.
Is it muzzled? But from the business perspective, just to try to be practical, I started with, I have a problem. I have a data that I don't know what to do with, and it's a really big pile of different files that I somehow probably should connect, maybe. And they are too big to just look into them. And I started to ask questions, very open questions, like, I have this data about this and that, and this is the this is the description of the data that I received. What shall I do to analyze it? How should I structure my process? And I must say that it was a very interesting starting point. It, as I mentioned, this wealth of data and the way it's structured, it's astonishing. It's such a great help that if I wouldn't know what to do, I would after asking these questions. So this is also interesting part because this is a pretty popular topic, data analysis. People discuss how to do things, and you can see that because it's so wide, in places you see some repeats because some people do first ABC, others start with CBA, but it tries to structure it, but you can see the repeats. Some steps are repeated in a couple of places, which is pretty interesting. That is also why you should think about what you do when you use it, because you will be repeating yourself if the process is different. People have different views of it.
In the book, one thing you will not find as a reader is us trying to be, to follow the popular trend of using ChatGPT, trying it. We didn't ask it to create a Facebook post. We didn't ask it to create Twitter posts. We didn't ask it to rephrase a piece of text as if it was spoken by a 6-year-old or whatever. So this is not a book about prompt engineering in the commonly used sense at the moment. It's a book about using ChatGPT for something for supplementing knowledge, experience of data analytics practitioners with a concrete tool, using it specifically. And we did ask it. You'll see concrete transcripts of chats with ChatGPT in the book. We did a bit of meta discussion as well in the book, where we asked it, what can you do as a, how would you do it? We asked it how it can help with certain things. We asked it to perform certain operations, and a lot of it was writing code for us, but writing very specific pieces of code, and also maybe similarly to the prompt engineering in the common usage. We asked it to write the code in very specific ways. For example, writing it in a specific language, optimizing it for specific technologies, using certain algorithms, asking it what algorithm could be used in this way and what libraries could be used to implement it. We did find some very interesting hallucinations, by the way, in the way it treated algorithms. So even a concrete, specific, supposedly clear thing as an algorithm, it can hallucinate in very interesting ways. So, if it gives you a piece of code, what should you do? Test it, for crying out loud. Test it.
Absolutely. Which reminds me, another funny thing about it's aware that it can hallucinate, it can make mistakes. And there is also examples where if you ask it, are you sure about what you wrote? There is a really considerable chance that it will just turn and say, oh no, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And it will turn 180 degrees. And then but are you sure? It will turn again. So if you will try to examine it like doubting it, it will happily oblige. And if you're in doubt, let's turn 180 degrees.
Except when, there is an example in the book where I started asking it about a fairly simple loop. And, I on purpose starting asking it, are you sure? This whole turning 180 degrees, it started spinning on the spot. So, yes. It's almost designed to, if doubt is expressed by the user, to apologize for a mistake. But
and
then
make it flee.
it's well, not necessarily, because there were places where it apologized for its mistake and then doubled down.
I also have one example where it actually digs the hole deeper and deeper. When it decided that 12 is actually smaller than 10, and that's the reason behind some code working. It was like really interesting. Now it aims to please, but I think that this is the problem. I'm not sure if it's the nature of the deep model. It's in the deep network, or is it this muzzle? But I have no doubt that there is a layer of muzzle on a deep layer. But it aims to please. And if you are in doubt, it's probably uncomfortable for you. So it will try to. I tried with obvious things. I was trying to make it discuss with me the flat Earth theory and assume the position of a flat earther. And it was very careful to indicate that Earth is round. But as you explicitly asked me to present the flat earther position, this and that, and it repeated this like a mantra.
It's worth, I think, indicating at this point that OpenAI has actually published a very interesting document on ChatGPT model related to risk management of the ChatGPT model. And in that document, they describe specifically the mechanisms that they've implemented to, as Marian says, muzzle the model and put an overlay on it, so that certain prompts are actually answered with a disclaimer or a warning, or are not answered at all, to protect, to implement a certain safety net against malicious use. And I would say 90% of what people term prompt engineering these days seems to consist of trying to
break the muzzle.
Right?
Yes, which is, and I think it's there for a reason. The term that we use in a book a lot is GPT advisor. Our book is about using GPT as an advisor to a business process. But people use it for advice on different issues, I would say. And there is a known case where somebody used unmuzzled open model to tragic end, because it convinced him to actually commit a suicide. It's a tragic story, but I think it's a learning that relying too much on this muzzle is necessary in a sense, because it will
absolutely
aim to please, but
human ingenuity is infinite. And obviously, if you ask the classic example, again widely discussed in the media recently, if you ask ChatGPT to give you a list of websites where you can download pirated illegal content, it will absolutely refuse to do so. However, if you agree with it and ask it what websites you should absolutely not visit because you hate such content, it will happily give you a list of websites which you should under no circumstances visit. So at least, that was true at the time of writing. Obviously, I know that OpenAI is taking every possible step to prevent this kind of
abuse,
unfortunate use. But on a more business-oriented side, we have seen the model to be very useful. It has enormous, well, shall I say, knowledge? I'm slightly apprehensive about using knowledge.
I think I would use it. It puts it in the information in the context that you ask. So I personally, that I am a fond of this pyramid. I think it's a knowledge. It's not a raw information, but you need to contextualize yourself. As I mentioned, I started with just giving it a problem, and it extracted information and put it into contextual advice which I would consider a knowledge. It may have gaps in this knowledge. It may misunderstand slightly things from time to time. It can hallucinate completely as well. But it's a knowledge. It's a really knowledgeable advisor.
So
I'm sure.
And this knowledge is very broad. We have a chapter on. I know you, Marian, wrote a chapter on the exploratory data analysis. There is a chapter on visualization of data. There's a chapter on text analysis, and there's a chapter on optimization, which deals with using things like parallel computing, distributed computing, GPUs to speed up the analysis. So it has all this brilliant knowledge, which is at the fingertips. It's almost, an epiphany when you start using it. You ask it a question and it responds with it understands your question. It's unlike Google, where you type something into Google and at least in the normal, because in the normal search engine, it just gives you a list of articles which you have to read and find out, and some of them may not be relevant. Here it literally hands you the answer on a silver platter. And if you're careful enough and dig on the platter and find all the flies that have snuck up there and kick them out, and then it's there for you. It's ready. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. I must admit, I'm using it at work. If I need quickly to organize some process or I don't know, prepare a frame for a policy, or just do this background work for a new project, structure this project, and do some estimates even on parts which maybe I didn't use for a long time or I'm not very experienced with. I get the answers which, if I dig deeper, break it down, I get really good estimates on steps, time scale, and responsibilities, who should be involved for a high level planning. It's absolutely amazing tool.
And it's, I think, worth mentioning something which some people may not realize up front, because we are used to dealing with computers in as processors, as in a direct way. I.e., you feed it data and you get an answer. Here, you can feed data to an LLM model like ChatGPT on BART and get an answer, but I found, at least, it's much more beneficial, rather than feed the data to get an answer, ask it how you can process the data, because then you can have a higher level discussion, and then it will suggest to you the methodologies, the approaches. It can write the code for you, and then write the program, feed it the data, get the answer from the program, and for why not feed the answer to ChatGPT and ask it to interpret it?
This is what we tried, and
Exactly.
what I found, the data that we worked on was e-commerce platform from Brazil, and I fed it questions like, I see on the chart that some region that I only seen the 2-letter abbreviation has some value higher than average. So how would you interpret it? It told me what the abbreviation stands for, what is the infrastructure there, but the actual connectivity and transport infrastructure there is much stronger than somewhere else. So it gave me the wide business context for interpretation of the results. It's mind-blowing. I don't know how many people I would have to ask to get the types of information that I collected from prompt.
But But moving a bit to my favorite subject, which is risk.
Risk.
There is a whole chapter about risk in the book, and we have noticed quite a number of risks, which are some of which are more general, but they do apply to LLM models. Some of which specifically kind of stem from the way the models are used and the way they operate. We won't spoil all the fun for the book, obviously, because we want our readers to enjoy every single word of the book. Yes, but we'll kind of touch on the subject a bit, and we've already touched a bit on data privacy, right? These are open models, and I know that ChatGPT is making a lot of effort to separate the sessions of all users. BART has been kind of maybe slightly less successful with it in certain cases, but I'm sure they're doing their best to remedy this. In any case, it's internet, right? Whatever you feed to the internet, you pretty much need to be prepared to that it will become public. Case in point, was it Samsung employees who fed their corporate secrets into the model in the hope that it would process,
code of some proprietary software, and it got learned upon.
Yeah, it was used to train because there is an actual kind of part of the terms and conditions of using ChatGPT are that some of the prompts and responses may be used to retrain it. In this case, it was used to train inadvertently, and it became public. So don't if you don't control the model, don't feed it proprietary data unless you're prepared for the data to be.
You touched upon a very important topic. Right now, you told me that some, I think, real estate company created their own LLM in a week using ChatGPT as an advisor and leading them to it. People will be using their own LLMs, and there is a really interesting risk that you mentioned in the book, which is a bias. And this is a really, really interesting part, especially if you train your model as Stanford did, if you train your model on the other model.
Yes. So for those who don't know, the story was that as OpenAI released, I think it was when they released version 3.
4. It was on the 4, yeah.
Stanford University, they achieved what was thought a great feat. They trained a similar model for an equivalent, I think, was of $800.
$600 or $800, yes.
Yeah, they did it by actually piggybacking on ChatGPT and using the model to train their model. So obviously it was not strictly comparable because obviously without ChatGPT they would have been completely unable to do it. But
at some point they could plug it off and get very similar results. And here we come to. Sorry, I'm still in the story.
In that case, just kind of for full disclaimer, in that case there was no, I think, no straight comparison done about biases and the breadth of knowledge. There was some rough comparisons about the scale of the model, but we did notice in our research that it is possible for the model to exhibit certain biases. It doesn't, for those who immediately want to jump on a bandwagon. No, we do not say that the technology is flawed. The technology, it's technology, right? You can train a model to be racist. You can train a model to be abusive. It doesn't mean that the technology is racist or abusive or whatever. Whatever the person puts in, the model exhibits, right?
As long as it's easily spotted, like racism. Again, it's the problem is if your data that you use to train your model is slightly biased, which in 90-something% of cases will give you the correct answer. But this 5% of wrong answers will push your business decisions to the side. And you may suddenly realize that your decisions are advised to push you over the edge.
Which puts, again, a slightly interesting spin on, I think, one of the first episodes on of our podcast that we've done, which is Listen to Your Data, because that presents a second layer risk, right? If the model is starting to exhibit a certain bias, should you dismiss it and start correcting for it, or should you listen to it and notice that there's actually bias in your data? If there's a bias in your data, you should probably ask yourself, is there bias in your data because of sampling problems? Or is there bias in your data because the underlying problem has an inherent bias, which is part of the nature of it? So there are so many questions we treated a bit deeper into in the book.
Let's stop us from stating the obvious, and let's leave some pleasure of reading to those who will want to maybe learn how to use GPT as an advisor. You have
the book is quite broader and contains, even if we say so ourselves as the authors, and obviously your lovely wife Marlena, she's also a co-author, worth mentioning. The book will be published by Manning, but for those of you who are interested in accessing the book earlier, when this episode is released, the MEAP, so the early access, should already be available. So we welcome you to obviously partake and experience.
Also discuss with us, and feel free to disagree. We will be actively participating in discussions around MEAP. It's a wonderful Manning's idea that the authors need to defend their claims, and readers have an opportunity to also suggest changes or submit comments which may or may not be taken into consideration by the authors.
Probably something that we should say, the title of the book.
Generative AI supported data analytics.
Yes, subject to change, obviously, because this is the map, and we welcome comments and suggestions on that as well. All three of us will be
actually
available as Marian.
I see. I just received information. It's been shorted by the publisher. It's Generative AI for Data Analytics. It's good to know what kind of
Generative AI for Data Analytics it is for now. Yes, we will be, as Marian said, available to contact under the map, and we will be very interested in feedback, comments, especially since this is such a rapidly developing field. Actually, one of my worries, and I'm sure Marian, you're sharing this, was that when we started writing the book, and we wrote it very quickly, in record time almost, because so many changes are going on, that I was worried that some of the things will be outdated. Fortunately, that the way
I don't think it happened.
We framed the topic. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to say. That the way we framed the topic is a bit, I should say, resistant to, because it's not just about, we don't describe the technology in detail. We describe the use, the concept of using it for a purpose which is quite practical. And even if the models are, I'm sure the models are getting better every day. The models will get infinitely better in the future, but some of the approaches will still be valid. Some of the concept will still be valid.
Some
and
of the risks.
the risks will be probably even more valid. So by all means, buy the book, get into the map, use this opportunity to talk to us. We'll be very interested. We will try to respond to all the contacts that we receive, time and possibilities permitting.
And let's hope it will be of use to someone.
Let's hope it will be of use to someone. Thank you for listening.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit bda.show to find out more about future episodes and guests. You can also check out cognition.llc for more information on Cognition Shared Solutions, our services and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, Artur, and my co-host, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian.
Thank you, and goodbye.